Allison, we have everybody except for the moment Kevin Archer and Don Mortifolio and Eve Sturdivant.
I'm here.
Oh, Don, I'm sorry. I'm going. I'm one
in.
below my list. Richard Shalamian won't be here. I meant to say. I'm going down through my list here. So Richard Shalamian will not be here, and at the moment, Kevin Archer and Eve Sturdivant are not here. Okay, we've got some presentations to do tonight. A couple of things to review. Take a look at the library plans that Eve and Loretta were working on earlier. And I know Kevin had all of the plans loaded up from Tektron. So if he comes on, he'll be able to answer any questions that we have on that. And then as well, I'd like to take a look at the draft document that Frank has done a tremendous amount of work on to get us to this point. But first, I'd just like I need a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of June 23rd, please.
No move.
All right, Frank, second. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstained because I was not at the last meeting.
The dog approves, so that's good.
The dachshunds approve.
All right, so we have that
I was
passing.
I was not at the last meeting, so I abstained.
Okay, so Allison, that's through with one abstention. Yvonne, I'll turn it over to you for a look at the library plans. I know you and Loretta were working on that. So I assume you have the plans at the moment.
I do. What I want to do is share my screen with you. Let's see if this works. Can you see my
Yes,
screen?
we can.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just put the plans and some calculations and things onto these slides just so that I could try and organize it a little bit. So what I'm going to show you are some previous drawings for a new library to sort of assist you in understanding library programs and space planning for a proposed building. So there's nothing beyond conceptual planning, of course, can be done until a final site is approved. Wouldn't make any sense because, of course, this site size and shape, of course, determines how many floors the building needs to be and all of that. But I will briefly explain our general process and our approach to the planning. So if I can figure out how to change the slides on here, it would be even better. So hang on. There we go. Okay. The overarching philosophy for the approach to this is for any planning for this proposed building, is to provide an environment that's going to create a center hub for the community. So it needs to basically tick all these boxes. It has to be a place for residents to be able to meet up, for the youngest residents to have early literacy support. That's that age group of 0 to 5. Has to be a place for children to come after school, a place for families to have access to activities and enrichment, older adults to have access to resources, basically for the entire town to feel like they have a sense of community when they walk in the door, where there's not a requirement to pay a fee or a membership, a way that is truly going to enrich the culture of the entire community. So that's the overarching philosophy behind the planning of the spaces. What kinds of spaces? We're mindful of how library services have changed in the years past. We also know that any proposed building needs to serve the needs of the community probably for the next 50 years. So that requires us to create and think about spaces that both outside and inside are flexible and adaptable as they possibly can be. The current community room that we have downstairs here, I think many of you have been there, is a large rectangle. And it's not fancy, but it provides the space that can be transformed into multiple different kinds of functions several times a day. Of course, we're restricted to serving only one population at a time because we only have the one program space. So program rooms that are not restrictive would be our goal. For example, we wouldn't suggest stadium seating or slanted floors or steps within a gathering space. So you want to consider the widest access possible and the widest amount of options for transforming for future uses. So space needs need to be flexible, and they need to be able to transform. Brookfield, of course, has a projected top population of about 20,000 in the coming years. So any proposed building needs to be planned to accommodate that growth. Let's see. There. I'm reviewing our existing 2017 space needs study, which was done by Library Development Solutions, and which was a subcontractor of our Doyle Coffin architecture firm that was hired for the 2018 referendum. So this is giving us a great starting point. And here is what the space planning needs looked like at that time. This is a chart from the 2017 report. I think I sent all of you this report.
Yes, we received that.
So it's not meant for us to discuss individual lines here. It's really an illustration of the kinds of planning that is going into any proposed or conceptual design. So libraries are classified as assembly when it comes to calculating the square footage requirements. So we have to take each type of service area, and based on either the material or that is needed in that space or equipment, that determines how many square feet that space needs. So for example, if there are 10,000 books, this is hypothetical, if there's 10,000 books in the adult fiction section, how many square feet does it take to house 10,000 books, and add the people space and the browsing space, and then you get the total square footage of that section. Those are not numbers that we have to make up. Those are, there are suggested guidelines by the state for all of those spaces. So we listed all the zones. This was in our 2017 report. And the goal is to update this and to kind of overlay it with any possible new building at the center school location. So obviously any building that we would propose would not be proposed for our existing population, but for the future population. As a reminder and an illustration of why that is so important is our existing building was built in 1975. So it was designed a couple of years prior to that. And it was designed to top out at 35,000 books. Very quickly after it was built, we exceeded the capacity for the books. We now jam 60,000 books, over 60,000 books into this building that was only designed for 35. So what does that mean? It means that you don't get the sight lines you need. You get stacks that are too high. There's a lot of problems when you don't think ahead and design for a future. So as a benchmark and just for discussion purposes, the communities of Avon and Simsbury and also Ridgefield, which are similar communities to Brookfield in terms of wealth ranking and or populations, all have libraries that are over 40,000 square feet. Similar style communities to ours like Monroe, Bethel, Southbury, all have libraries either around 30,000 square feet or more. So those things all get factored into our planning as well. So with the permission of the retired architect Bruce Tuthill, we're working with 4D Designs to take his 2009 drawings and turn them into a CAD program. I got that language from Kevin. And then we take the 2017 space needs study and overlay it to the CAD program, and then we'll be able to create some visuals. Again, this is only going to be for conceptual and discussion purposes. These are not finished designs. These aren't, building plans. They're tools to help us see, depending on a location, can we fit what we need and how does it fit in that location? So this, go ahead.
question. The prior screen where you were showing square footage, would that be substantially different now? That was done, what, 2017?
So, Frank, that's a really good question. We have to balance our sort of desired square footage with the square footage cost of building. And so even though the total may, when we revise it for current day, it may come up to, 44,000, for example, we still have to balance that with what the community would sort of what the appetite for the community is for paying for this. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and I'll mention after I show you these floor plans, some of the ways that we're looking at trying to create efficiencies, being mindful, of course, always of the cost that's involved. So I'm going to show you the 2009 drawing, which is this was done in one of the numerous previous attempts to build a new library. This is the main floor. This shows, can you see my cursor if I move it around?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this wall here separates the children's library from the rest of the building. And the rest of the building is all sort of open space that could be configured in any number of ways. The reason for walling off the children's area is, of course, one of safety, but also because the material there is so different, the noise level there is so different from the rest of the building. And so, so this is really the only proposed kind of separation in this floor plan. Remember that, when people walk in, if this is to be sort of the hub of the community, a nice welcoming area is always great. So in this floor plan for this main floor, you would enter here. There's, room, just reading areas here. There are book stacks here. This is a multi-purpose gallery, which actually I think looks down into the bottom floor, but also has this children's space, has many of these private study rooms, which we know are very, very necessary these days for people, especially now. Imagine if the library were open right now with all the people working from home, how useful this would be. So again, this is conceptual floor plan only. This was designed for another location. Any design or concept for the center school building is really would have to be obviously changed. But
yeah, I want to hop in for a second. I want people to understand this. In other words, think in terms of what would happen if we could extract a piece of this and suggest what we might be able to do with it somewhere else. In other words, it doesn't matter whether the children's library section is on the right or the left or the top or the bottom. The idea is we need a children's library section. We need study rooms. We need places to be able to house large books or have an art display. So this is a concept, but it isn't the map of what we absolutely need to have, whether we had an old building or we repurposed the center school.
Exactly. And the next drawing, well, one thing you will notice about this is it's basically a rectangle with some bump outs and some style, some design styles, but it's basically a rectangle. And so if you look at the next level, which is again, for this plan, this was a 2-floor building, and center school might be a 1-floor building. So if you look at it again, rectangle, you could easily take this whole bottom level, which houses the meeting rooms and storage space, and sort of attach it to, I'm not sure, oh, I can't get back that way. Oh, I might have to go all the way through. Here we go. Hang on one second. Nope. There we go. And attach it to this one. Take that bottom level, attach it to maybe the right side of this one, and you've got your long sort of rectangle, and you can do everything on one floor. So once we are able to convert this to the CAD program, and if it ends up being that center school is the approved site, this is a way that we can show that all of our space planning needs could be accommodated and how it might fit. Again, not a building plan, just for concept drawing, a concept and thinking only. So this, of course, shows you a number of different sizes of community rooms. What we know from all of our site visits to other successful libraries in the area, we know that a couple of different sizes are necessary. You might have a group that wants to meet. You might have a knitting guild that has maybe 30 members and they need a space. You might have a writers group that maybe has 8 people in it that need a space. You might want to show a movie, so you would do that in this large space. Then one of the things that I think Betsy mentioned in our previous meeting is that our former design that was that was our concept drawing for the 2018 referendum, had the meeting spaces walled off so that if the library was closed, the community still had access to these spaces if they wanted to use them for any number of things. So, yes.
Question, do you have the square footage of the first level and the second level?
Kevin did the calculation on this, and he thinks it's about, I think he said he thought it was about 30,000 square feet. So this would be a little bit smaller than what we're looking at.
No, but I mean, you're separating how many square feet on the first floor versus how many square feet on the lower floor.
Oh, I don't know that we know that right
Yeah,
now.
I don't know that we have that, Frank. But when we, one of the things that we're doing is by getting this converted into a CAD program, and I'm a little bit outside of my comfort zone using these terms, but my understanding is that once it is converted, they will be able to calculate all the square footage and will be able to change it as needed and sort of move things around and play with it. So I think we will be able to use it. And again, it's a tool. It's not more than that right now.
Yvonne, these are the plans that went to the town in 2018, correct?
No, these are the plans that went to the town in 2009.
Oh, 2009.
Actually, Betsy, I don't know if is Betsy still? Yeah, Betsy, I can't see you on.
Yes, no, I don't think
Betsy, I don't know these went to the town.
no, these never got presented because 2008, 2009 was the classic time when who would go out and ask the town to build a new library, unfortunately. Yeah. So these have just been in storage.
Okay, why are we going back to these plans as opposed to the plans from a couple of years ago?
Another good question. And the reason for that is, first of all, this plan is the rectangle shape that we think is easily adaptable. And the other plans from 2018 was, I'm going to forget what Kevin called that term, but it was essentially an X. And that was, we were trying to come up with really efficient ways to improve line of sight and to reduce the amount of staff we needed to have to staff the building. So the design was an X design, which only fit in that specific space on the municipal campus.
And that set of plans, the latest set of plans, if I recall, was around 34 or 36,000 square feet.
I think it was 34.
It was just under 35. It was 34 and change, but but that did not include the unfinished basement
Right,
storage.
so that's where I was going. The 30, if we call round it off at 35 and add 5,000 for the
Right.
storage,
Exactly.
we'd be at 40,000 square feet, which is, I think, the number we were throwing around last time.
Right, but, and the reason for that is because I guess unfinished basement space doesn't get factored into square footage
That's right.
for, you know,
Correct.
for building purposes or for these kind of purposes.
So when you
these
say
are-
these are going to be converted to digital, are we going to be able to then move these things around and see how they would fit in the footprint of Center School?
Well, that's our one of the reasons why we're taking this step of converting it into the CAD program. But the library board, I guess, technically is the owner of this once they pay for that. So I'm not sure how that will all work, because anytime we want to manipulate it, we will, you know, there'll be a fee for doing that. So it wouldn't be no cost to come up with a bunch of different designs.
Yeah,
The problem is you need a subject.
I
you
think
need
where
a
Bob is
subject.
going is very important. If you take these, what I would call modules, and say small meeting room, 457 square feet, community room, 1,253 square feet, and then you have the square footage of every one of these little pods, children's library, so many square feet. Then you can begin to drop those into different configurations within the square footage that's available.
That's exactly right, Frank. That's exactly the reason why this is going to be a good planning tool.
Yeah.
The problem is the
And, sorry,
AutoCAD application requires a certain level of subject matter expertise in order to actually use the tool. While it does work with like a digitizing tablet, you really need to know the specific capabilities and, you know, like Excel or anything else. If you know, it's easy to develop a basic knowledge, but if you try to do something like, you know, overlay what we call the small meeting room over classroom 17, it's not that intuitive. It's really
Right,
designed
and
for
Bruce,
architecture.
that's true. That's why we're working with 4D
Right.
designs.
Yeah, you need somebody to do the work for us, so somebody talks through or comes up with potential, you know, these two meeting rooms can fit nicely in this one classroom because of the square footage. You really need to have somebody on your behalf translate that into viewable.
yeah.
Right, but the design of any library, of course, is far in the future, and then comes under the, you know, that would be something that the library board of trustees would get involved with. But this is really meant to just be a tool so that, as Bruce was just saying, so that we could sort of see, and Frank was saying, so we could see if the spaces that we need could fit on that site.
Right,
Let's let Betsy jump in. She's been trying to jump in here for a little bit.
Yeah, I will tell you that this, the library board, my guess is, would not use this other than a very starting point. I mean, when you want somebody to tell you how to fit architecturally what you want into a plan, you hire an architect. We did that. This is the first. At least the second one was Doyle Coffin. And in my mind, if once we settle on a location, we will get an architect. We will ask the town again to fund an architect to do the drawing, so we can have somebody who has expertise in this, and we don't have the library staff and the board saying, oh, I want this there. The library staff and the board are not qualified to do the architectural drawings to say this is what we could fit where, depending on the location.
That's
Exactly.
it. And I fully agree. Here's where I'm going with this. I am on the fence, completely on the fence at the moment, as to say, let's use the building and renovate it, or let's knock it down and start over again. I am just right on the fence. And I'd like to be able to look at it. And I know some of you have made up your mind and some of you have thoughts, one way or the other. But I would like to just be able to look at it and say, all right, if we take 40,000 square feet of that building, and let's just for argument's sake, say we take the right-hand side as you look at it. Can we make it meet the requirements approximately? Not without, I realize we're not designers and I'm certainly not going to pretend to be. But do we think roughly it would work if we were going to rehabilitate or refurbish that building? Or
Yeah,
do we
the answer
start
is,
over?
if it's the same size, yes, you can fit everything in. How you fit it in is the creative part. I mean, I watched
I agree.
both,
Bob,
saying,
Bob, to answer your question more succinctly, what it comes down to is a question of exactly how much, demolish and rebuild is required vis-a-vis, to your point, is it in the end cheaper to knock it all down with a crane and purpose build it from scratch?
Exactly, Bruce. And see, this is the question. In other words, I happen to have very good spatial relations. I'd have a party trying to figure out what to fit where, but I don't know anything about construction engineering. I don't know where the supports for the roof need to go and
Right.
where the air conditioning vents and all that kind of stuff. So I might say, well, it looks like there's enough square footage, but I don't know how the rest of the utilities and the internal engineering will work. And that's where I am with Bob on this, because every time I look at it, I go, I understand. I mean, Kevin has reassured me the bones of the building are good. That's fine. And the number of square feet seems to be adequate to the need. But I can't figure out exactly how this is going to come out in a proposal to the town that really clearly delineates what the cost of doing X is going to be.
And to Loretta's point, that becomes yet another architecture exercise, which can cost in the millions of dollars. I mean, it's none of this, even for architects or engineers, none of this is trivial. You have three factors you need to understand. The basic reconfigurability of the building, to Loretta's point. Are there load-bearing walls? Are they concrete block walls or poured concrete walls versus 2x4 and sheetrock? Is it easy to demolish them and move them, or is it more of an event? Two, the one person's point was the topology of the land. We look at the last proposal to use the famous soccer field at Town Hall. It kind of took this plan and had the first floor entrance as shown on this plan, but the second floor entrance was on the side because the land sloped down to the Still River. So that's the portion you've got to also modify, that when we talk about a particular piece of property or a location on a particular piece of property, what is the topology of the ground? In the soccer field instance, the bottom entrance was 90 degrees off from the main entrance. So those things, while not, they're clear in the realm of architecture and design, they modify what might be a can design and cost additional monies to modifying the existing plan to meet the current proposed landscape and
I want to add something to that, Bruce, but I can sense that Betsy wants to say something again. So Betsy.
well, actually, this set of plans is for a 2-story building, and down the hill. In fact, this was the hill very near the police station.
Right.
So this was designed. The lobby is on one level, and everything else is up one level, with a door on the second. If you saw the original plan, there's an entrance, and there's another entrance on the other side of the building. So, I mean, these are dependent, all of these plans are dependent on the location. And at Center School, Bob is right. The particular question then becomes, it's a location which the new library committee and the library board are satisfied with, but what we haven't yet come to terms with. But I've told you that personally, I mean, I would much rather tear down and rebuild. It's a much, it just seems to me a better idea because it allows you to do what you want. In the case of what we designed for the soccer field, the X was, as Yvonne said, designed so that the staff sits in the middle and has sight lines for the entire building. And if we do a very long structure, single story, it means we need more staff.
I think a lot of that, see, that's where Kevin has to look at it and say, these are walls that can't be moved. If there are, I mean, I'm sure there are support walls in that building that can't be moved. You know, he reiterated when I spoke to him again that, you know, basically anything that's not a support wall you can take down and you can move. And can you create that concept that you're showing us here on this screen? I don't know, because like you, I don't know where the support walls are either. But to me, and Betsy, I have the utmost respect for your opinion, and again, I'm on the fence. But if we were to take and say, we're going to try to take these components, these modules, and fit them into the center school building, you're not going to use this set of plans. You're going to throw them all out and you're going to start over again. Because you don't have a first and second floor. You don't have a sloping, piece of property. You have, you got to create basically everything new, but you say, all right, I need a children's library, and I have no idea what the what the area of that area is, but I need a children's library. Yvonne, how much? I what is it? 3,000, 4,000, whatever it is, X square feet. I need, study carrels or study rooms I need 8 of them of X square feet each. That's right off the bat seems like it might be the easiest part. But you take it all and you start all over again.
The hardest part's going to be the hardest part's going to be delivering that 15,000 square foot open gallery. You could do something like put the children's library in the gym, for example. But the hard part is going to be to find a inexpensive way to open up the existing building to give you that big gallery that you want, so that you can minimize your staff and have them see as much of the facility as they can, fitting at a central desk.
And remember, tentative, just in the first offhand comments, we're going to give the gym to the Park and Rec, because that was down at that.
All right, no, I agree with the overall plan, but just saying that, for example, you could consider the gym becoming the children's library, but still the large elephant in the room, quote unquote, is that very large gallery, and whether or not it's even technically feasible, given the fact that the building is really a series of 4 or 5 separate buildings that were added onto.
Just because we've got the 40,000 square feet doesn't mean we can make it into what we want.
Exactly.
And Betsy, I will defer to your opinion in that respect. Just because we've got the square footage doesn't mean this is going to be the best option. And again, I just don't know. What I was hoping we might be able to do is take some of the modules and just lay them out over the footprint of the center school building to see if we even have a shot at it. Because I think that would help us get at least a feeling for it. Keep in mind as well.
Bob, I agree with you. I think we're overreaching here. We keep saying that we're not architects, but I think we're trying to go beyond our competency. And I think, again, if we look at the existing floor plan of the center school, and we take the different modules, as I call them, the story hour, the community room number 1, the restroom, the boardroom, and we begin to drop those into the square footage, at least we have an idiot's approach to saying it'll work or it won't work. Now, obviously, there are a lot of things that will impinge on that, such as load-bearing walls and so forth. But I think that's about as far as we can go without practicing the art of being architects without a license.
I would agree. And the reason I'm trying to go in that direction is because then if I can get to that point, and maybe it's just me, if you've all made up your mind, just tell me. But if I can get to that point and say, this is not going to work, we can't make this 40,000 square feet suit the 40,000 square feet that the library needs, then I can comfortably say, we recommend knocking it down and starting over again. But until I get to that point,
Right.
I can't say that. And I don't mean to, I mean, no disrespect to any of you who would like to knock it down. I'm just not there yet.
But Bob, I want us to focus on the charge to this committee.
Mhm.
Because right now we're trying to answer a question that may not be our primary question. I mean, we could tell the town that we think that given the opportunity to work with what we have in the shell of this building might be a possibility for the library, and it might be the thing that we would recommend that they pursue to see if it's feasible from their standpoint. But I don't think that we have to make the decision.
Absolutely not.
Well, I was going to back up to say, somebody was talking about dollars. We definitely do not have to come up with cost. Maybe it'd be nice. That's definitely outside of our expertise realm and charge. And Loretta, you may be right. Maybe we don't have to get into the detail that I'm pointing to. I guess I'm just trying to get it right in my own mind.
So Bob, can I
Yeah.
throw in another idea, a
Sure.
little tangential to all of this? I was looking at the plans and where the division is between what we say, for the library and the Parks and Rec, putting the cafeteria and the commercial kitchen in the Parks and Rec area. Now, it seems to me that the library is going to want somewhere of a kitchen, not because we don't have a commercial kitchen. We have no desire, in my mind, to have a commercial kitchen available to the public, but there is one there. And I wondered if you look at the plan where the cafeteria and the commercial kitchen are take up about half the space of, there are 4 classrooms that sort of go right beyond that.
Right.
Would that be something that might be worthwhile saying is shared space between the library and Parks and Rec and used as a set of meeting rooms in addition to some of the meeting rooms in the library, meeting rooms for other people? The library obviously would use them. Parks and Rec may use them for their own meetings, but could that be a separate section belonging to both groups together?
Absolutely.
It seems to me that would be a logical.
The more use we can get out of the space, I'm not trying to put a name on it, but the more use we can get out of the space, absolutely. See, one thing I'm afraid of is that if we, and again, I hear what you say, Loretta, we may not have to go this deep, but if we were to say, we think it should be knocked down, we should start over again, I think we're going to lose Park and Rec altogether. I don't think we're going to design something, nor is the town going to put the money into something that's going to service both groups. They're not going to build a building for Park and Rec and a building for the library on that property. That's my thought. We're going to lose Park and Rec altogether.
Well, Rob, once you start going down that path, there is a hybrid alternative, and that would be something like demolish the right side of the building to purpose build up a library supporting infrastructure, but retain a number, 25%, 33 1/3% of the left structure to be essentially intact and just attached to the new building.
That crossed my mind, but I don't think we would get it because I think the disparity in the buildings would be so great that I think we would, we'd spend all this money on a new library.
You'd have a steel and glass monolith on one side and
it'd be like,
on the other. Yeah.
Well, some people have done that, but I refresh my memory because I think we were the ones we'll be creative in saying, could Park and Rec share the building with us? But in the town strategic plan, I don't recall a building for Park and Rec. Am I missing something?
No, there's not.
It's not.
There
in the-
is, yeah.
But given their need and the number, you know, just like the library, the number of people
Oh,
that they service, she made just a very, to me, a cogent point that sits with me. We're the only department that has all of these services that we offer, and we don't have anything that we call our own. And that stuck with me.
But again, I don't know from Parks and Rec's point of view whether that's really the issue. They have services that they offer, very broad range of services across the full demographics of Brookfield, and they're constrained in their current programming by the school calendar, by the lack of space and so forth and so on. And they have plans, and I think they're reasonably well thought out plans for what they could do beyond what they're currently doing. The constraint is space.
It's
Now,
constrained.
whether the town wants to accommodate that need for space is quite another issue. And frankly, it's not our issue. That's for the Board of Selectmen.
And I appreciate it's not our issue, because it's definitely not in the capital plan. And I appreciate it's not in the capital plan to do anything for Parks and Rec. And I appreciate it's not our issue. I guess it just stuck with me and we may have the opportunity to at least recommend something. That's where I am.
Well, I will tell you too, in the 2012 Facilities Planning Committee that I chaired, we looked at everything that had been in progress, like the Still River Greenway, the Senior Center, the streetscape had started at Four Corners. And the question was, well, so what's next? The library was on the list. The schools were on the list. Parks and Rec was sort of on the list. The schools fell off because the schools provided no information. Parks and Rec, Dennis Pinto was still there, wanted, no, actually the police department was not involved at all at that point. But Dennis wanted a field house with 2 gyms in it. It did not come up, that committee recommended that the library be the next piece on the capital plan. So I don't know, I don't ever remember mentioning the police department at that time.
All right, so let's try to gather our thoughts and get back on track here. We have a set of plans for the library that's going to be digitalized. Am I hearing that is there enough consensus that we would like to at least play with, seeing if those modules fit in the footprint of Center School, or is there no feeling that we want to go down that route?
Can I just jump in for?
Yvonne, go ahead. Yvonne?
So I just wanted to say that the whole reason that this is being brought to you this evening is because the committee is being charged with recommending future use for Center School. And because the library is rising to the top as one of the highest needs that will likely be recommended usage, the purpose of this was to show you how we get to the square footage requirements that we're saying we need. And as the committee members, you need to understand that these are not numbers that are pulled out of the air, that these are based on state guidelines for the different spaces and things like that. So really that was the purpose for, I didn't go through the rest of it, but we've kind of gone off track anyway. So my main point was just to say, this is to fortify your understanding of how we get to the 35,000 square feet. What it ultimately looks like is not anything that we can deal with right now. It's really just a tool for thinking about, earlier on, there were some discussions about, well, why couldn't you do, 25,000 square feet, or why can't you do 30,000 square feet? And so really this is just to explain the base background thinking of the space planning.
And I think we all accept, I mean, I don't think anybody disputes the numbers. I don't think we're in that ballpark at all. But I'm just asking if you guys have the patience to go forward and spend the time trying to take a look, or have some of us at least try to take a look at to see if this is going to fit, or if you don't want to go down that route and you just, I think we're down to basically 2 recommendations from what we were talking about so far. I mean, we've got the library and park and rec, and whether we narrow it down to 1 recommendation being the best and highest use, or if we say we feel that both could coexist on that piece of property, that's yet to be decided. But I'm trying to see how you guys want to spend the time, if you think it's a worthwhile exercise or it's not a worthwhile exercise to try to make this, see if we can make this fit.
Well, I think it's a question of time and question of money. In other words, how much is it going to cost us to have someone not only digitize it, but to give us a couple of renderings? Because we don't really have a budget. No, the money's going to have to come from somewhere.
Right.
Bob, not that I want to push myself onto the stage, but I think an awful lot of what we're wrestling with, I've addressed, perhaps inadequately or incorrectly, but anyhow, I've addressed almost everything that we've been talking about in the report that I'm suggesting. So we might want to move to that and come back and then see if there's some consensus where to go.
Okay. Is anybody got an objection to that? We'll table where we are and move to the report and
Okay,
take a look at that.
Fine.
Sounds like a plan.
okay.
I assume that you've all read it.
Yes.
Oh, Frank.
Multiple copies. I'm running out of paper. Can we go ahead with that, Bob?
Yeah, Frank, do you want to bring it up and share it, or do you want Yvonne to bring it up and share it? Or
I'll see if I can pull it in here. Hang on. Hang on, I've got it here. I'm just putting it on. And then I go here. Okay, can you see it?
yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, to begin with, I went back and read the charge that was given to the committee by the Board of Selectmen, and I've read it a number of times. And I think we should remind ourselves what it is that we're about and how far we can go. I would suggest we might be at the point of submitting an interim report to guidance. So this introduction is just exactly that, an introduction for the uninitiated
Is Frank freezing up on us?
reader. You're
Yeah.
all familiar with this, but
You're freezing a little bit, Frank, so we're losing you a little bit.
okay. On the bottom of page 1 and moving on to page 2, I've developed what I think are a series of questions and or ideas that we should explore. Is the need that we're looking at served currently, or is it underserved? Is it an important need? And so on. And again, you can all read, but coming back to, for instance, Parks and Rec, I was not in my thinking constrained by the fact, in fact, I didn't even know it, that Parks and Recs had never been considered for their own unique space. What I was looking at was, again, what our charge was, what would be the highest and best use of the space in the center school. It may be a totally new concept to say that Parks and Recs should have access to that. So again, if you've read this, there's no need for me to dwell on it. If we can move on to page 2. Are there any questions about the using this as a broad criterion for looking at the different proposals? Okay, can we move to page 3 then?
Yvonne, can you scroll down?
Oh, it's scrolled on my computer. I guess it,
It takes a little time to catch up to the rest of us, I guess. There it is.
All right, now we come back a little bit, if you will, to the bottom of page. You're on page 1 now. Bottom of page 2, recommendation. Okay. Bottom of page. Okay, you're getting busy now.
You can go ahead, Frank, because we've got it. I think we've each got a copy of it, so we can.
Yeah, that's
Well,
what,
okay, if you all have a copy, it might be easier to just deal with it. Paper. When we come to the recommendations, you'll see that I use the word endorse the utilization of the central school facility to accommodate a new library and the Parks and Recs Commission and 4 other periodic users, and they'll be defined. And secondly, relocating the central office personnel that are currently occupying about 9,000 square feet in Town Hall and moving them to the to be vacated old library building. Relocate the Housatonic Resource Recovery Group from 160 to the old Town Hall. Either put them in Town Hall or let them cohabitate as they currently are with the Parks and Recs facility in the center school. Then that leaves the town with making efficient use of a vacant 1,500 square foot building. And this is important. Number 5, engage a design firm to develop plans supporting the conversion of the school facility. And this is what I said before, where I think we need to be very, very careful that we're not playing architect. And in our charge, the selectmen said we would most likely act on your report by recommending that the town hire a design firm. So this gets into this whole issue of dollars. Now I've addressed some of the costs, but again, I say it's off the wall type of thing. All right. With due diligence in mind, complete the prospect of a complete tear down. And this is to your point, Bob, of the central school facility and rebuild to accommodate a library and Parks and Rec and other periodic users, or as a complete new police station. The design firm engaged in number 5 above will be asked again to develop pro forma cost estimates. So again, getting us out of the business of trying to tell the selection how much we think this is going to cost. With the and then we need to explore the potential availability of supporting funding from state, federal, grants, foundations, fundraising, whatever. And then the last point would be, with due diligence in mind, the town should consider the viability of selling or leasing the old library space. Then I go through the process that we went through, which we don't need to spend a lot of time looking at. And then coming down to the presentations, starting with the police department, and basically.
Lost the document.
Pardon? Huh?
We lost. There it
Page 4?
okay, what page were you on, Frank?
Page 4, presentations.
Okay, got it. Can you see it now? No?
It hasn't caught up yet. There it goes.
Okay.
Okay, basically in one paragraph, I'm summarizing what Jay Purcell told us, and that his current facility is inadequate. He needs considerably more square footage, and some of the very specific things that he needs that relate to security, which would make, it seems to me, occupying or sharing a facility with somebody else wouldn't be feasible. Then I talk about the presentation that the library has made, And I talk about why the library is a wonderful contributor to the overall well-being of the community, and also talk about how woefully inadequate it is in terms of standard measurements. A town of they originally designed for a town of 10,000 people, and we're better than 17,000 now and moving to 20,000. And if you look at comparisons with the per capita square footage allocated to library space with our neighboring towns, we're the lowest. And again, if you look at what the library does in terms of quantitative information, how many meetings they sponsor, and how many other services they provide quantitatively. The current facility is much constrained by space limitations and has in the spacing an array of maintenance issues: the windows, plumbing, electricity, code issues, HVAC problems. But more to a point that Yvonne has made a number of times, the space itself has to address a very changed set of community needs that only partially exist or didn't exist in 1975 to service the expanded and existing programs and meet contemporary needs. A dedicated space to service our after-school teenage students, our senior citizens, our preschool kids. Now, the library enjoys a very, very wide public support despite the rejection of the plan at the 2018 referendum. And I was not here when that happened, but it seems to me that that was just a matter of timing and flew in the face of the proposal to build the new grade school, and the Board of Ed didn't have any cost data available at that time. So we were asking the public to make a fairly significant commitment to a library with an unknown dollar commitment in the making for the school. And then the other issue, again, as I understand it, was that the very, very strong, very vocal opposition to the use of the soccer field. That the rendition that the library presented to the community was just a concept rendition, and it was misunderstood, and it was judged to be incompatible with the design of town hall and the senior center. Now we come to Parks and Recs. And again, I was amazed at the breadth of their programs and how it reaches such a large piece of our community. In fact, touches all the segments of our community. Very young kids, preschoolers, K-12 students, parents, curious adults, senior citizens, recreational, fitness training, arts, crafts, self-improvement, sports activities, and so on. And again, as I had mentioned earlier, their issue at the moment is that they're constrained with their current program. And they have a logistical nightmare in terms of scheduling around the school calendar, around other demands for space, and so on. So I think that the Parks and Recs program, if we look at the highest and best use and go back to the criterion that I had outlined, they service an incredible breadth of the community in Brookfield. And I think a part of all of this is how is the community perceived by people who are looking at us as a new home? Are the services there for their children, for them, for their parents, and so on? The other presentations made were by the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Baseball League, and the Republican Committee of Brookfield. And while they each provide an important service to the town, the fact of the matter is that they're relatively small in terms of the segment of the population. And their needs are relatively modest, basically meeting space and storage space. Now, as I had said earlier, Parks and Recs have demonstrated, in my thinking, a real mastery of scheduling with their current program around the school calendar and so on. And they've indicated that they were willing to handle the scheduling and express the willingness to share space and manage the logistics of multiple users. So the point being that the 14,000 square foot of space that I would think we might allocate to Parks and Recs would meet both their needs and the meeting and storage needs of the other four organizations, allowing the Scouts, the Baseball League, and the Republican Committee to improve and their current programs and provide additional services to the town. So if we can move to the next page in summary, the library and Parks and Recs Commission proposals would allow us to fully utilize, allow them to fully utilize their programming capabilities and greatly enhancing the perception of Brookfield as a desirable place to live and raise a family. Now, I then talk about the facility itself, and this is a lot of what you already know.
Frank, can we stop there just for a minute? Can we just stop there for a minute? Has anybody got any comments, observations about anything down through the summary? Anybody got any comments on that piece at all? Or has Frank summarized everybody's, the way everybody is looking at this at the moment? Or has anybody got any objections to what's there?
No, I think he's done a great job.
No, I think it's pretty accurate.
Because I think you're answering some of my questions, I know. So I think you're getting us back on track in terms of what the charge was as opposed to maybe where my thinking was going. So,
Right.
All right. Okay.
All right, so then I lay out the center school facility. And again, a lot of this you may already know, the square footage. It's wood is the primary structural material. Then I get into the Tecton review that was done, and they covered 170 items with very great detail. And the overall condition of the facility was rated from poor to fair. And then if you look at the details of the report, very poor 4, poor 42, fair 49, good 30, very good 4. And that's in an exhibit attached to this report. Now, they estimated $19 million plus or minus to redevelop that whole facility if it were to be used as a school. And that's a big if. Talk about the size of the facility, the space, 7 acres. Talk about the no central air and so on. Now, Parks and Recs have indicated in some detail what their ideal, in quotes, facility would include: a gym, an exercise and weight room, an aerobic / dance room, a craft room, several rooms for classes and meetings, teens activity space, babysitting space, a cafeteria, a kitchen, office space for 3 to 5 people, storage space, parks and storage space. Parks and Recs are currently making use of some of the space in the center school, so they know that facility pretty well. The management of the commission, Mary Knox, has indicated that they could take the space allocated pretty much as is with some modifications. The library, on the other hand, and again, I have to tell you, in my mind, I see the library on the east side, the newer space, and then taking a hunk of the old space, and I see Parks and Recs and the other 4 smaller ones in the older section. So I then talked about the library having little or no use for the current configuration of classrooms. The space allocated would have to be gutted basically back to the outer walls. And this would give, in theory, a large open space for design with pre-existing steel girders. Now, again, I'm not an architect. I don't know if you can, in fact, create one great big empty box. That's somebody else is going to have to look at that. An architect is going to have to look at that. Now, I come up with what I call a very simplistic model. We'll allocate 40,000 square feet, 35,000 for operating space and 5,000 for storage. And this would use the newer space, 22,000 square feet, an additional 1,000 square feet from the older section. Parks and Recs would be allocated the remaining 14,000 square feet, all in the older section. And this would contain, matching against their ideal facility, 8 classrooms, 2 offices, a small dining room, conference room, a gym, a cafeteria, a kitchen, a music room, backstage storage, external storage, and storage under the open space in the courtyard, a playground, a large grass area adjacent to the playground, and ample parking. This would give Parks and Recs their ideal facility. Now, whether at the end of the day, the selectmen or this committee or the selectmen and the taxpayer think it's important to provide an ideal facility for Parks and Recs, that's up to other people to decide. Now, I took a shot at costing, and what I wanted to see was just in a very broad sense, what do we think we might be asking the Board of Selectmen and ultimately the taxpayers to commit to. So I used a guesstimate for the cost of the library space at 300 to 350 square feet. And I had several points of reference for that. The Tectron 2018 estimate to complete the redo of the center school. Again, using that as a school building, but their cost was $360 a square foot. I looked at the 2017 proposal for the referendum at 30,000 square feet, and they used using $400 per square foot. So basically what I came up with was that a cost in the range of 12 million to 14 million. How accurate that is, I don't know. I think it's a ballpark number, and I think it's a good ballpark number. So subject to an architectural review, renovating and upgrading the 14,000 square foot in the older section for Parks and Recs, and for the Scouts, the Baseball League, and the Republican Party would not require rebuilding the building per se. We could use, I would suggest, $150 to $200 per square foot to do a significant renovation, yielding an estimated cost in the range of 2.1 to 2.8 million. And again, with the caveat that all square footage estimates are just that, they're estimates, which is why I was so interested in the square footage of each of those little boxes, and we can begin to drop those into space. Now, we have been asked in our charge to look at use of the vacated library building. And I come back to a point that was made earlier. There were 18 to 20 employees, central office personnel. They occupy about 9,000 square feet. Coincidentally, the old library building is about 9,000 square feet on 2 levels. There are 39 parking spaces, and the location is good. The upper level, 6,000 square feet, is basically open space now. 2 offices and a bathroom. The lower level is 2,000 square feet of open space with a kitchen facility, 2 bathrooms, and some storage. The lower level is directly accessible from the exterior and accessible from the upper level by stairs. A redesign of the library space would appear to be feasible. There are ADA code issues, there are problems with the extensive window system, or HVAC issues, and plumbing problems. But there is space for expansion, both to the east and to the west, and I suspect out to the road. There has been some interest, and I haven't probed this, but there has been some interest expressed in the old library building from commercial interest as a possible scale. Now, again, bringing this up, as I had talked earlier about Parks and Rec currently operating the old town hall, and they have a rent-paying tenant, the Housatonic Resource Facility. And your internet connection is on state attention, with 2 employees. And again, they could be relocated to the HHRA, either the town hall, or they could continue to live with Parks and Rec. An alternative, and this, Bob, that's to your point, I think, that you've made a number of times, spending $14 million to 17 million to redo a building that's 83 years old needs to be rigorously, and I mean rigorously, looked at in the longer term. With a complete tear down, rebuilding from the ground up, giving the town an all new structure to house the library and adequate space for towns and rec, and other periodic users make more sense. And it's a question that's very much in my mind. A rough guess would be that the cost would be in the range of $27 million to do that. And that's 54,000 square feet at $500 a square foot. Now, rounding out the considerations, the committee, wait a minute, I'm missing something here. Excuse me. I keep saying I edit this thing. I edit this in the morning, and then I edit it again in the evening. I've added a line here under alternatives. Let's see, where it says a very rough guess would be a minimum of $27 million. And then I have or could the torn down site be a dedicated new police station? Their need being 36,000 square feet. So rounding out the considerations, the committee explored a commercial interest in the property, and there is none. The committee also explored the marketplace interest in senior housing in a converted central school facility. Cost considerations aside, there's ample space available for the different types of senior housing in the general area. So that's that. What I would suggest that we as a committee are at the point of where we have, I think, done a fine job in sorting through the community needs, sorting through the community wants, sorting through the community expectations. I think we've done a very, very good job of identifying how the different organizations are addressing these needs in the community, sometimes adequately, sometimes inadequately, and have tied that oftentimes to the lack of adequate space in the case of the library and in the case of Parks and Recs. So I think we're at the point, again, going back and rereading many times over the charge to us from the selectmen. I think we have here in this report a preliminary report to the selectmen saying we've done everything that we've done as outlined, and we now respectfully would like to have a dialogue with you about your reactions to our proposals and your reaction to the dollars indicated. And the selectmen may say, sorry, that isn't going to happen. Certainly not going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, given the current economic environment. So I think we've reached a point where we have not finished our work, but we've reached a point of where we very properly can take our work to date to the selectmen and invite them to have dialogue on our work to date and get some of their input. They may very well say, yeah, we love your idea, and we're willing to go find the dollars to engage an architect to do preliminary dollar estimates, and then we'll make a judgment about whether that's feasible in terms of financial posture.
Frank, thank you very much for the effort that you put into this. It's a nice job. Comments on Frank's last thought about taking this and basically moving it to the selectmen? Thoughts, comments?
Can I make one minor correction to the report, Frank, before I go on? You referred to Mary Knox as head of the Parks and Rec Commission. She is the department head for the Parks and Rec organization. So she's a town department head in the same sense Yvonne is.
I'm sorry, how did I refer to her?
As head of the commission, the Parks and Recreation Commission.
It's not a commission, it's a town department.
Yeah.
Where do I?
I'll pick that up. I'll look it up, Frank. I'll pick it up with you.
The same is true. It's the Brookfield Republican Town Committee. It's a legal name. So we want to make sure that you used it in one place correctly and another place it didn't look like it was quite right. So we need to do some cleanup on that.
Yeah, we'll go through and we'll proofread it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So the other thing I would say about it, if I were the Board of Selectmen and you gave me this report plus everything that you intend to attach to it, I would have a tendency to say, oh,
yeah,
I don't have enough time for this. We need this. I think this is I think it's a great report and with good things attached. I think you need then to think about how you're going to go to the Board of Selectmen's meeting and present this to them.
Maybe
And
are you saying that maybe what we need is like an executive summary?
exactly.
That's
what I was going to recommend,
a
Bruce.
1 or 2 page synopsis of our findings.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help Frank with that. That was my only reaction as I looked at it initially, is that we need, this is what we were asked to do. This is what we did, bullet, bullet, bullet. Here are our recommendations. That's all they need to see so they can pick it up. And as Betsy's saying, not get completely lost in it.
no,
And if
we
we're gonna
absolutely.
I was not suggesting that we present the entire report. I think we should file the report with them. Whether they choose to sit down and read it is in their judgment of how they go about doing their job. But what I wanted to demonstrate by doing this in this level of detail is the job that we have done.
No, we need two things. They need to have this report available to them. We need to give them this report, but we need the executive summary as like a cover letter.
No question about that.
So when we go to them, if we go to a Board of Selectmen meeting, we would present the executive summary and then we would give them the report and all the backup as exactly that, our due diligence and our backup. So Loretta, if you've got time to work with Frank on an executive summary, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll make a crack at it. And Frank, you were asking somebody to lay it out. What are you looking for? I mean, I could create a fancy looking document, but I don't think Brookfield is used to that. So what do we want to do?
We need to, make sure our formatting, make sure our names are all correct, make sure we've got all, I think we got to just make sure it's all properly formatted.
The wordsmith the document.
Yeah.
Is there a missing
I'll
period?
give you a hand. Yeah, I can give you a hand with that, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it is just basic grammar and syntax.
Okay.
Paragraphs and periods missing, and some word choices could be potentially better.
Okay.
But I'm a frustrated English teacher, so.
I wasn't, and I'm still a fuss.
Yeah, I do agree, though, that we do need the executive summary because that's an awful lot for them to digest.
Well, and some people are going to want to drill down. Some people that have an interest are going to, we need to do both.
Oh,
Some
yeah,
people are
absolutely.
very much into the details. Other executive-like people are going to want to see, the bullet points. Give me the PowerPoint slides. Tell me what you did. That's all I need to know.
Well,
Right.
it's like any executive. If it's more than a couple of sentences, they're not going to read it. So we have to give them the top level.
Exactly.
on the other
Everything on
hand,
one page.
the report actually, if we turn this in as a report, it becomes a public document and
That's why
Other
I want to make sure it's
Yeah.
nice and clean.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it's formatted. I want to make sure it's clean. And I want to make sure it's all, like Loretta pointed out, names are referenced the same way, if they're referenced in multiple places.
Style guide. We want it to reflect well on the committee.
We just
Like we
want,
know what we're talking about, huh?
we want it to be a document that we're proud to put in there. Frank, thank you very much. Loretta, if you want to work with Frank, if you want me to, I can get involved in that as well. I can pull my wife into it a little bit too. She's an English teacher, so she can
Oh,
help.
another English teacher. Wow.
So she can help us out as well if we need.
Well, you'll remember, I think in one of my many emails to you, I said that I sure could use some volunteers to do exactly what you're proposing to do. I'm not very good at formatting and design and so forth, and I would like this to reflect very, very well on this committee. I think it should be a very tight, neat, handsome package. And if nobody reads it, that's fine. But if somebody out in the public reads it and said, boy, they really did their job, I'm interested in demonstrating that we've done our due diligence.
I agree. I'd like it to be a nice, clean, sound document before we turn it in. Okay. Has anybody else got anything they want to add in here for tonight? We had talked about inviting the Municipal Building Committee for questions and answers. It sounds like we've gotten past that. I did extend them an invitation for the next meeting, but it sounds like I think we're past the point where we need to talk to them. So what are anybody's thoughts? I didn't get an answer from them anyway, so they didn't jump on our invitation. I think we'll bypass that one. If nobody's got anything else, I think we can adjourn for tonight.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Allison, will you stay on for a minute, please? Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night,
Have a good evening.
everyone.
Have a great week.